Is Space D-6 worth your hard-earned gaming dollars? Come on back after the break to find out. Hey everybody, welcome out to the show Board Game Reviews. This is a YouTube channel dedicated to the tabletop gaming hobby, and this video is part of a video series looking at the game of Deep Space D-6 Armada. Now, Deep Space D-6 Armada is a dice-based cooperative game where players are cooperatively working together playing a dice game. And like any good dice game, the big idea of the game is trying to use as much of the dice to work in your favor to go ahead and resolve challenges. Now, some games are dice games where the whole idea is just to throw as many dice at the problem to go ahead and solve it. Some games like to do dice manipulation where you use various powers, various different abilities to go ahead and manipulate the dice effects that you have. Both these games have their bonuses. Both these kind of games have their negatives. This game is much more on the aspect of just taking as many dice as you can roll and throw at the problem to go ahead and resolve it. Not really as much about dice manipulation, but this is a cooperative game that is about growing your ship, exploring a evolving galaxy, and it's a game that's going to evolve as you play the game. One of the unique things about this game, though, is this is a game that's cooperative where the end game is actually not known to our players, and there's multiple different end games that can occur to the game, and not all the end games are bad guy Armada 1, bad guy Armada 2, or bad guy Armada 3, or door A, B, or C, or watch out for the Borg. This is actually a game which has different endings that can kind of buck the trend, and maybe one of the endings may not be a cooperative game anymore, trying to avoid too many spoilers. So what this game is brought that is new versus old to your idea of your dice allocation game, your cooperative game where you're trying to explore a galaxy, where you're trying to stop an oncoming resource from piling up, which is going to cause your loss condition. The basic loss condition for this game is if too many of these distress beacons ever come out on the board, the players are going to lose. If all of our players manage to enter the critical status, our players are also going to lose. But if our heroes manage to defeat the final grand bad guy, that's how our players are going to win the game. So this game does have a lot of positives for it that are a little bit more unique. The very first one I've already mentioned a couple of times is the fact that this game does have multiple different endings. And you don't actually know which ending you're going to get because your ending is going to be based on these data chips right here. When you play this game, you're going to start resolving these different distress beacons, sorry, I almost called them distress calls, distress beacons, and the distress beacons you're going to resolve are going to get you a certain amount of these data chips. Once you get your second data chip, you're going to look at the two data chips, you're going to look at a chart in the rule book, and this is going to tell you which one of the endings you're going to get, which is kind of cool. It's kind of a unique thing, and the first half dozen times you play the game, you're going to be surprised by the endings. Of course, once you start learning which data chips lead to which endings, because each specific data chip is pretty much associated with one of the stress beacons, you can pretty much say, hey guys, let's not do 62 unless we really have to because we've seen that ending a dozen times. Let's try to go for one of the other endings, which is kind of a nice thing that's about the game. So I like that aspect of the game. I like the idea of what they're doing here, but we're going to come to one of the big problems I have with this game. I don't have a problem with dice games. I do not have a problem with dice manipulation games. I do have a problem with dice games where the whole idea is to throw as many dice as possible at the problem. Now, thankfully, that has been slightly resolved a little bit because there is a second edition of the rules for this game. The very first basic rules edition of the game that actually came out in the retail copy of the game actually allowed you to start piling up dice. You can pile up dice after dice after dice, and as long as you kept the game going long enough, as long as you weren't blown up, you could roll all those dice. So thankfully, there's an FAQ available for the game that actually is the DX version of the rules that actually modifies the rules a little bit, which is something I'm very thankful from, which does kind of limit the ability just to throw as much dice as you can at the problem. But now we get to the crux of the real problem of this game. Since this is not a dice manipulation game, this is a game of randomness. You are very much the victim of luck and also the whims of fate when you play this game. Because in this game, there are not a lot of ways to mitigate your luck. You could have a game where you're just rolling super great, you're getting the dice rolls you want when you want, you're getting the things that happen, the events are coming out in your favor, and you're just going to rocket through the game. Rocket, spaceships, rocket, get it? Okay, anyways. So you're just going to basically just be having a heck of a great time. Then you're going to have those times where the dice are not going to be in your favor. You're going to enter combats where the only thing you do is roll any anything but an energy blast. You're going to get enemy ships that you are just not equipped to defeat, because this game does have a little bit of a snowball effect to it. As you win more, you do better. As you lose more, you do worse, because you really need some early victories in this game to get some credits that are going to allow you to start getting the heroes, allow you to start getting the upgrades, to start taking out some of these more powerful enemy ships. Because the challenge level on these ships can go anywhere from not too bad to getting a little bit more challenging, to ships that can really make your day very, very horrible, because they're going to do tons of kinetic damage, maybe multiple points of kinetic damage with hull breaches and everything like that. And these early ships come out in the early game, nothing you can do about it. You're pretty much heading for a grand game of, when's the end game going to blow me up, because there's no way I can win. And that is something that is really unfortunate about the game. This is a game which is built on so darn many randomizers. And again, like I said, I'm not bothered by randomizers. I do enjoy randomizers. I actually enjoy dice manipulation games. They're one of my favorite games, because even though dice can sometimes not be my friend, I do enjoy the mechanics of dice manipulation game, because I can build tech trees, I can build skills, I can build strategies around my ability to never have dice work in my favor. And for me, that's kind of fun. If I get cards in play that say, hey, flip a card or die to its other side, hey, that's going to work in my favor. Or go ahead and replace one die with another one, hey, that's going to work in my favor. That doesn't exist here at all. You're basically at the whims of the fate of the dice you roll, and sometimes you're going to just roll those energy and blow stuff up. Sometimes it's just not going to be in your favor. And again, like I said, there's a lot of randomizers in this game, to the point where I'm going to say there's too many randomizers. One of the things you can do in this game is you can add modules to your ship. How do you get modules? A random draw from the box where you're going to draw 3 modules. What if you draw 3 modules that you either cannot afford, because some of these modules can go all the way up to 8 credits, or modules that really do nothing for you in that part of the game? That's basically your whole action wasted. You can also go out there and buy heroes. What if you're presented with heroes who you can't afford because you don't have the 5 credits for them? Or what if you're presented with heroes that are just basically not going to have the symbols you need? Sure, this hero may be fantastic, but if you don't need any of these gear symbols, he's next to worthless to you. He's not going to help you. Again, that's a wasted action for you. It doesn't help you at all. Next, you have the randomizer of how these beacons, these distress beacons, are going to come out. Sometimes the distress beacons are going to come out and it's going to be totally in your favor. You're going to get a whole bunch of distress beacons that you can handle in any order you like. And then sometimes you're going to get these prime distress beacons that are just going to keep coming out. You're going to keep getting prime distress beacons. And generally speaking, the prime distress beacons are generally more challenging. And if you're getting them early in the game, there's really nothing you can do to stop them. And just like those ships like I described earlier, they're going to build up and build up and build up until eventually you're going to lose the game. So again, we have another randomizer, increasing the amount of luck and the amount of randomness in a game that I think went too far in too many other randomizers. I think the game would have been a lot better off if we had less randomizers. We have the randomizers of how the threats are going to come out. We have the randomizers of how the enemy ships are going to come out. Randomizers of the heroes. The randomizers of the upgrades for our ships. The randomness of how these distress beacons are going to come out. The randomness of all this stuff added in to the randomness of dice. Dice you have no way to manipulate at all. I didn't even mention 2 more possible randomizers that can also add to the heartburn of the game. The first of those is the fact that every one of these distress beacons is pretty much associated with these data chips. You really can play a game where you're going to go through maybe 20 of these distress beacons where you won't see a single data chip, or you may just get super duper lucky and go through maybe 5 or 6 of these before you start seeing your first or maybe even your second data chip, because these distress beacons are affiliated with these data chips. It's the randomness of how you draw that's going to affect how these data chips come out. I've literally seen this game go anywhere from 45 minutes to over 3 hours. 3 hours for a cooperative dice game. 3 hours. Think about that for a second, just from the randomness of how this is going to come out. Not only that, I appreciate the asymmetry of all the ships that are in this game, but I can tell you, certain ships are definitely better at certain player counts. Certain ships are definitely better at certain phases of the game. And not only that, one of the best tactics in the game is to beef up one of the ships as quickly as possible with all your money, throw as much money as one of the ships, to beef it up as quick as possible, then use that to go ahead and get things under control, then take all this money, shift it over to the other ships that have been falling kind of behind in an effort to go ahead and build your ships up. Again, that's one of the ways you have to do to fight the randomness of the game. And again, that kind of shows I'm not going to say bad game design, but I'm definitely going to say it shows design that's a little bit more on the inexperienced side. I played plenty of dice games that are really good because they use more experienced design, such as Elder Sign. Elder Sign is a dice game. It's very similar to this game if you really think about it. Get rid of the space theme, throw in a Cthulhu theme, and you're going to feel pretty close to it. But it has a lot better mitigation aspects into it, and it mitigates things better so you never feel like you're being completely screwed by randomness. When you play Elder Sign, you're like going, yeah, maybe the dice don't like me that much, but hey, at least I can work around it by using other things. In this game, not so much. Matter of fact, that luck can really hit you really hard sometimes. Now, I have thought about one possible fix to one of the main issues I have with the game, which is just the randomness of these distress beacons. I thought it'd be kind of cool if, as you complete these distress beacons, you start putting them off to the side of your ship. And if at any point the players have, I don't know, pick a number, maybe 5, 6, or 7 of these distress beacons. If you ever have 5, 6, or 7 of these distress beacons, you can choose as a group to go ahead and cash in all of these distress beacons and randomly pick one of these data chips that will help you bring about the end game. That's something I thought would be a good idea to minimize that random chance and prevent you having those long 2.5, 3 hour games just with the randomness of these data chips. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not an enemy of randomness. I actually, like I said multiple times, I enjoy randomness in games, but you can't have this much randomness in the game. I get how randomness adds to the replay of the game, but there's a fine line you cross between excessively random and random enough with enough mitigation to make you feel like you have agency in the game. Because otherwise, you're just feeling like you're rolling dice and hoping dice are in your favor. Not really good, advanced, experienced game design. Now, there are some nice positives about this game, especially with the production value, what you got here. You have some very cool wooden components. I mean, these ship components are very nice. I hope the camera can pick this up, but these are extremely thick wooden components. And these aren't plastic, these are wood. They're painted. They have a nice silk screen on them for all the ships. They're double-sided. Matter of fact, you get 6 of these, one for every one of the ships. And they all look really nice, and they actually manage the shipboards. Speaking of the shipboards themselves, these shipboards are all dual layered, which means it's very nice. You have the ability to let your components sit in there perfectly so they're not going to slide around, so they're not like going, okay, was this component associated with section 5 or was it 3? No, they slide in very nicely. Your shield slides in very nicely. Your hull slides in very nicely. These slide very well. It's really awesome that they put so much work into the components here because it makes the game look extremely nice. The card quality is nice. I mean, it's a lot of white, which kind of has a kind of a sterile look to it, but I guess there's kind of bonuses to having lots of white, because if you ever played games that have lots of black cards, a good one is Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space. You know that after you play the game like maybe 2 or 3 times, the cards are completely marked. You have to sleeve that game. Nice thing of having a little bit more sterile look to the cards here with them being all white with not a lot of darker colors. Even as the cards get used a lot and shuffled a lot, they're not really looking that bad. I mean, I played this game multiple times now, and these cards actually still look pretty darn good. I mean, part of that is the fact that the quality is good, but also the other part of it was actually a really good decision to make the cards look with a cardstock that looks like it's going to survive longer. It's going to take the rigors better, and it's going to survive lots of replay. The plants themselves are nice, thick cardboard. Again, it's double-sided for if you want to play the true solo side, or if you want to play the side with multiple players, which is a nice touch. I like how they did that. That's a very nice bonus. I'm not a huge fan of these fleet tokens right here. This felt super fiddly. I hated having to go through this and say, okay, somebody find 2 2s. Okay, we got a 2. There's 1 2. That 2 goes on the fleet. Okay, I need 1 more for a fleet. Okay, find 2 matching tokens. Okay, we got the next fleet right here. It's kind of a pain in the neck having to do that. I'm not saying I have a better idea, but it kind of felt a little bit fiddly. I mean, I get what they're trying to do. It makes sense in a way to go ahead and signify what fleets were everywhere, but it felt a little bit kind of like a pain in the neck trying to get that all. One way around it would be to make the effort to go ahead and organize these before you start playing. Put the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, all the way up to the 20s all together. Probably not up to 20s because you shouldn't have that many fleets out there, because if you do, you're probably getting ready to lose the game. But I think they could have done something there to make that just a little bit less fiddly, maybe a little bit better, and then a little bit less of a pain in the neck to keep organized out there. Now, while the components look pretty darn good, I do have to say that I'm kind of frustrated with the rulebook. The rulebook needs some help. Rulebook doesn't have a component list in it, But there is one nice thing I can say about the rulebook. There is a nice quick rules reference on the back page, which is super duper nice. It basically goes over turn structure, and it does a really good job. But the rulebook itself, it could have used a little bit of work, including the fact that there's no section here which basically describes what all the components do. Granted, it shouldn't be too hard to figure out, but it would have been nice that they would have had a section for all the components, because I think that would have worked out a heck of a lot better. But it is what it is. But it does make the game feel like it was rushed and untested, especially when right after the game is released, there's already an official FAQ, which changes the rules for the game for the better. That's a bonus. It changes the rules for the better, but it shows that this game did not get the testing it should have had. This game basically feels like it's a alpha version of a game that could have been. I actually, when I play this game, I keep thinking to myself as, gosh, if they would have did this, the game would have been better. If they would have did this, the game would have been better. They would have made sure that some of these components don't have actual errors on them. The game could have been better. If this rulebook would have been such a pain. Sorry, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but there's just sections of the rulebook that just did not make sense, where I actually had to hunt down on Board Game Geek just to make sure I was playing the game wrong. It feels extra frustrating to me because I wanted to like this game a lot. This game felt like it had a lot of potential, but that potential was hampered by the fact that it feels like it was rushed, not tested enough, and it just feels like it's still an alpha game. I would love for this game to go back in the hopper for a little bit, get some more playtesting, get a little bit more feedback, get these small persnickety issues fixed with the game, and bring the game back out for a 2.0 version of the game. And I think a lot of people would be happy with it. One of the big things is make it so it's not such a huge slog trying to get these data crystals by going through all of these random distress beacons. I already gave you one great idea how to fix that problem. Once you get 5, 6, or 7 of them, cash them in for a damn data crystal. At least it's going to bring down the time of the gameplay. I think that'd be one great way to help minimize this horrible feel about the game, just feeling like it's a slog. Well, not always a slog. Like I said, I've had some games that actually play pretty darn quick that actually felt really, really good. It's just that one occasional time where it just feels like it could drag on is so maddening, because I look at this game and go, it could have been better. And I think that's my biggest struggle with doing this review for this game, because I look at it and say, you could have been better. It just could have been better. Look, I'm not a game designer. I'm not pretending to be a game designer here. But when I can look at a game and say, look, I can think of 3 things that fix this game right here, right now, and probably make it 20% better, that's a problem. I mean, the game has a horrible pacing to it. You are totally at the victim of luck. If the enemy ships come out in the wrong order, you're obliterated. There's nothing you can do. Why don't we have 2 stacks of enemy ships? 1 early stage enemy ships, 1 stack of late stage enemy ships. This is where the tough ships are. This is where the easy ships are. We shuffle this stack, we shuffle this stack, we put this stack on top, ensuring that there's a nice, easy flow to the game. Early stages of the game, we have ships that we can take out. Later stages of the game, we have ships that are a challenge. Easy fix. Why don't we do that with the threats detected deck? Same idea. Bring in a nice, easy, staggered bounce to the game. Here's another option. Why don't we have 2 bags of these distress beacons? Possible another idea to fix the game. Early stage distress beacons, maybe they'll be blue so we can pick them out easier, so we don't have to do this damn fiddliness of all this extra fiddliness. We'll say the blue distress beacons are a little bit easier and they'll be in the blue bag. Once we've gone through 10 of them, then we move on to the yellow distress beacons or something like that. Again, nice flowing gradual difficulty added to the game. Or even better idea, we have a blue bag with distress beacons, which has a higher amount of getting 1 of these distress beacon associated things coming up, again shortening the play time of the game. And then once we've gotten 1 disc or 1 data disc, then we go on to the other distress beacon with the more challenging distress beacons with the other data disc, again helping the game have a nice, more even flow to it. Or the thing I've already mentioned twice is, once you get like 7 of these, cash them in for a data disc, again helping the game have a nice even flow, making it feel more balanced, making it feel like it has more of a progression, and also making it feel like it's not all about the randomness and the luck of how the enemy ships come out, how the threats come out, and how these distress beacons come out. Nice even flow makes it feel like a much more better designed, better play tested, and better thought through game design. I love random games, I love dice games, but not when it's this so obscenely random. It's just way too much. I've had a miserable game of this game, playing this game for over 3 hours and not getting a single damn one of these things. Then I had another game that was over 45 minutes with a victory. That feels broken to me. Now, to get off this tirade, because I feel like I'm slowly going down a pool of tirade, because this is one of the things I was dreading about doing this review. I knew I was going to go out on a tirade because it's painful to see good just be so inundated with stuff that is annoying. But I will give some props here. The game does have a large amount of replay variety. There's multiple endings, which is very, very cool. Large amount of replay variety because there's way more ships in the game that you ever use in a game. Remember, this is a 1 to 4 ship game. The game does come with 6 ships. These ships play differently, and even they play differently when they're used together. A Hades plus a Dawn's Reach game plays differently than a Pathfinder plus a randomly grab one. Let's just grab the Harmony. So a game involving the Harmony and the Pathfinder feels different than a game involving the Hades and the Dawn's Reach. It's cool. It adds the replay. There's replay because there are way more missions than you should hopefully have to go through in any one game. Hopefully, again, remember that randomness. But there's so many of these missions ensuring that you should have a game that's going to play differently. The fleets are going to come out differently, making the game feel differently. The game has a evolving feel, which means that it feels like there's lots of replay potential in the game, as long as you're not just burned by all that randomness and that luck, which can really just rear its ugly head. The game is also a really good dollar value. I mean, this game, I believe on Kickstarter, again, this is a friend's copy of the game, not my copy, but I believe this game went for $60. And double layered player boards, lots of dice, these huge tokens. This is actually a fantastic deal for $60. Of course, I would be happy if they raised the price to $80 and fix some of the persnickety issues I've already mentioned, but that's besides the point. The game does a great job of playing from multiple player accounts. The game plays all the way from 1 to 4 players, and it is a game that plays true solo. It has rules in it for true solo play, using these shield and hull tokens, which allows you to pick any one of the ships. Of course, some of these ships are a lot better at solo than others. Matter of fact, one of these ships is terrible at solo, but that's besides the point. I think that you can use it as a way to make the game more challenging if you like, but the game does feel like it plays very well at multiple player accounts. I like the fact that the turn structure is very organic. You can change how the play order is going to go. Some players can change the play order if they want, which makes the game feel organic and feels like you are playing the game as a group because you're all making decisions as a group versus some cooperative games which are, you know, it's very easy for one person to say, you do this, you do this, you do this. It doesn't feel like that because you feel like you're talking as a group because you can evolve your turn structure. I like that. That was pretty darn cool. Basically, I guess it all boils down to, did I like this game or not? I like the concept of the game. I like the idea of what this game is trying to do. I just think that there's a couple problems with the execution. I've already mentioned those problems multiple times, and I'm not going to creep on harping on the same issues over and over again. But the bottom line here is this feels like an alpha version or maybe even an early beta version of a game that could have been great. If this game was in the condition where I think it should have been, I thought this could have been a great game. As it stands now, this is a game that feels like it needs a couple band-aids, a couple patches, and probably one more FAQ just to modify the rules one more time, although it seems like the most recent FAQ is doing a decent job of moving the game towards where it needs to be. This is a dice game. I expect randomness in dice games. I just don't expect an excessive amount of randomness in dice games, and I think that's the fine line that this game crossed over. There's ways to fix it. It's not doomed. And if you're willing to home brew or make some home brew rules for the game, maybe steal the ideas I've already mentioned, you're probably looking at a really good dice allocation game that you can have fun with. I'm sure we're all sick of the Cthulhu theme, so it's nice to see a dice game like this that has a theme we don't get to see. Space and dice theme, we don't see that too often. Of course, there's some really good space dice themed games out there, but it's not a theme we see a whole bunch, so it is actually really nice to see it. Game plays cooperative, plays 1 to 4 players, does a really good job on all those things. Just understand what you're getting into. Understand that you have a rule book that has some problems. Understand that you are dealing with a random game where the randomness could either turn into a slog or maybe it'll turn into a good game. But again, just understand and be ready for that. You have a game with lots of variety, lots of potential, lots of really good potential here. But again, just be ready to start doing some homebrew house rules. I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you enjoy this video series. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I will get to them as quickly as I can. You also feel free to email me, off the shelf board game reviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. I'll answer your email as quickly as I can. If you enjoy this content, if you enjoy the channel, think about supporting the channel over on Patreon. Just $1 in the tip jar can help me cover my costs, help the channel keep going strong. This channel operates without sponsors or without the luxury of free games. All these games are purchased by myself or by my gaming group to bring out this more content for you. If you enjoy this video, if you enjoy this video series, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching.